All right, what's going on, guys? We got Arnold Palmer Invitational event at Bay Hill this week. First time as an elevated tour event, and here we go. 27 of the top 30 in the world. It's going to be obviously it is a strong field, and when you look at the top, I mean, obviously this is a course 7,400 yards. It is about distance. It's about approach shots from over 200 yards. It's another factor in a course like this. All the dog legs, you can't always cut the dog leg off as you might see on 10. You might see a little bit on 1. But for the most part, you're going to have your mid-iron game on. And it's also approach to the green. Shots gain approach is a huge this week. Historically, players who have excelled in that area have done well and won this tournament. When you look at past champions, though, we talk about distance. Bombers have done really well here. Mark Leishman having won it in 2017, Rory McIlroy in 2018. It's really a course that favors distance, but also consistent driving as well. I talked to Lee Westwood here last year. Of course, he's not in the field this week, but he did talk about how it's really refreshing to step on a tee box and on a PGA Tour like at Bay Hill and to be forced to really drive it well, not just long, but drive it consistent and shape your shots off the tee. So that's the demand for a course like this. When you look at some of the favorites, obviously Scotty Scheffler is the defending champion this year, and he's going to be a favorite. Understandably, he should be. His caddy, Ted Scott, has played pretty well. He's caddied well for good appearances for Bubba Watson, one of the Bombers in the past, his former player. So there's a lot of good experience from Teddy Scott as well. But yeah, Scheffler, of course, deservedly should be up there towards the top. When I look down the list, obviously John Rahm's only played this once. Last year was his first time. Schauffele's only played this once. Morikawa's played it a couple of times. I would like his iron game and his consistency with the driver off the tee around a place like this. But when we pinpoint a player among the favorites, I'm going to look at Rory McIlroy. I love what he's done. He's never finished outside the top 30 here. In the last 6 straight APIs, he's finished in the top 13. Rory really should be a player that you pick this week. I spoke with him last year at Bay Hill, and I said, what do you like about the way the course is playing? And he said, you know what? I like the way that they're shaving off runoff areas, right? So around the greens, you're going to get into more trouble. The penalty is going to come into play a lot more in those shaved off areas. And so for him, look, not only is he a good driver of the ball, he's first in driving distance. So there's a great strength there for you around a place like Bay Hill, a bomber's paradise. But he's also 8th in shots gained around the green. And to that point, it's huge that he can get up and down from those shaved areas, from the curve into the bunkers that curve towards water. He's able to get and keep his round going based on how well he's played this year. Huge that he's 8th in that category. And then approach, that a very important stat. He's 9th in shots gained approach this season on the PGA Tour. Off the tee, he's 10th in shots gained off the tee. So there's just a lot of good things going for Rory. He was first round leader here last year. He's posted low rounds of the day in the last 7 APIs. Really a strong player. I think you would do well to pick a player like Rory McIlroy at Bay Hill this week. And then as we go beyond that, I think there's other players that we should look at. Matt Fitzpatrick, he's got 4 top 10s in 8 starts at Bay Hill at this course. Of course, he's got a 2nd in 2019. Fitzpatrick's a great pick for you. Just in his last 4 starts, he's got top 10s, right? You know, he really has consistency around this place going into this year. Regular tour event that resembles the U.S. Open. When you think about how hard of a test it is at Bay Hill, and he's a U.S. Open winner from last year, right? No brainer with Fitzpatrick. I did speak with his caddy, Billy Foster, and he mentioned to me that this course at Bay Hill suits his guy's game. It suits Fitz's game and his strengths. He's a scrapper when it comes to tough conditions. Remember how tough it got last year with the wind coming in, right? And the difficult weekend on Saturday and Sunday. This is a player who knows how to play and navigate out of tough conditions. And I think that's an important part for a week like this. Shots gained around the green is 27th. So when he's going to get out of position, you know that he'll be able to keep things going. So a good pick in that regard. And also total driving is 12th this year on the PGA Tour. So look out for Fitzpatrick, a strong player at a place like Bay Hill this week. Another guy that I'm looking at, Tyrrell Hatton. Of course, he's finished first in this event in 2020. There's just so many positives I like from what he's brought to this table here at Bay Hill. He's tied for 2nd last year He had a 78 in round 3, and he still found a way to tie for second. Only lost by 1 shot. Who else can boast numbers like that? He just had 1 bad round. What do you know? Wasn't able to get it done. But of course, the wins came in. The wins will be a factor this year as well. Keep an eye on that. It should be double digits for all 4 days, especially on Friday. It should be in gusts of up to 35, 40 miles an hour. But this is a player, Tyrrell Hatton, who plays well in the wind. Okay, he knows his way around difficult windy conditions. Shots gained, tee to green, he's 18th this season. Total driving, he's 4th. Remember how important it is, not just driving distance, but accuracy with all the dog legs here at Bay Hill. Think of 1, you think of 9. Driving accuracy is 25th, so a good area there. Just so much, I think, that's strong to his game that's going to help you when you pick a player like Tyrrell Hatton. His caddy, Mick Donaghy, of course, a veteran. I spoke with him. He said that he's got a lot of patience for this course, and smart course management is something he's seen out of his guy at Bay Hill in the past, and that's obviously important. A course like this, so much trouble, so much water at long par 3s, a lot of difficulty. So look out for a player like Tyrrell Hatton. 3 top 4s in 6 starts at this golf course. I mean, that is just so good for a record around this place. Tied for second again last year in very difficult conditions, and would expect some of the similar windy conditions this year that we got last year. So look out for Tyrrell Hatton this week at Bay Hill. Another guy I think you should really be looking at for this week, Gary Woodland. Obviously, windy conditions. This guy played in Kansas, played his college golf in Kansas. He knows windy conditions. I spoke with his caddy, Brennan Little, who said he turned a corner in his last start at Riviera when he tied for 9th. He's played the best golf he's seen in years out of his guy, this U.S. Open champion for 2019 at Pebble Beach. And that's huge. Like, if you're seeing consistency out of your player, which he is, he's won in Florida, of course, his first tour win at Valspar 2011. Difficult golf course. You've got some of that this week too. Bay Hill also demands good consistency from your mid irons, right? Outside 200 yards is a big distance. And for him, he's 6th on the PGA Tour in that department, an approach from greater than 200 yards. That is a big strength. He's 8th in overall driving distance. Remember how we talked that this is a bomber's course. This is a course that favors longer hitters. He's 8th in that department. Shots gained off the tee, 26th. Shots gained approach, a really pivotal part of Bay Hill. He's 11th for this year on the PGA Tour. So he's playing good golf, according to his caddy, and he's also got the numbers to back it up to be a good pick for this week. So his mental game, according to Brendan Little, his caddy, said is always strong, and it's a good fit for Bay Hill. Of course, strength of the game has always been his iron play. He excels with those mid irons, as we just talked about. The numbers are showing that as well. So look out for Gary Woodland this week at Bay Hill. Another player to look at, Corey Connors. He's got only 4 starts at this event so far in his career. 4 starts for Corey Connors at Bay Hill, but he's got a 3rd in 2021. Where he had a 66 in round 1, a 69 to back that up in round 2. And then 2022, last year, he was T11, where he had the co-lead in the first round, the 36-hole leader as well that year. So he's played pretty consistently, especially the last 2 years. So a lot of strengths there. Greens and regulation, 21st on the PGA Tour this year. So he hits a lot in that department. That's an important factor. And then off the tee, he's 33rd in shots gained off the tee. So there's a lot to appreciate about his game around this particular place. And then approaches from 200 to 225 yards. Remember that mid iron, long iron importance at Bay Hill. Well, he's 26 on the PGA Tour so far this year in that department. So look out for what Corey Connors can bring. I spoke with Corey's caddy, Danny Saul, about this course. He says Corey's driving sets up great for the doglegs left at this golf course when you think of number 1. And some of these holes that veer to the left, he plays them very well, demanding tee shots, and that's something that Corey embraces and takes on well. The course looks in great shape, fast and firm greens, according to Danny Saul, his caddy. So we'll see what we get out of Corey Connors this week. But based on his last 2 times playing really well at this event, I think he is a good pick for you, really, in any format this week at Bay Hill. Look at a player like Adam Hadwin. I know he got his first tour win at Valspar, a very difficult golf course, the Copperhead course in Florida. Hey, you're got a difficult golf course at Bay Hill as well. So I know it's not apples to apples exactly, but he's comfortable playing hard courses that focus on precision, that are all about strengths, shots gained to the approach department, and he deals with wind and water as he had to there in winning Valspar. So I think there's a lot that he brings to the table. He's 34th in shots gained putting so far this year. That's important to keep his rounds going, to keep obviously it's so hard that you're going to have difficult conditions. So he's got a hot putter, always a strength of Adam Hadwin. So that's important. He's 32nd in shots gained approach on the season on the PGA Tour, and that's of course the magical stat for a week like this at Bay Hill. So keep an eye on Adam Hadwin. I like what he has, the arrows in his quiver for this week. Look at a couple players that bring really good value for this week. I think a really good value play this week is Nick Hardy. Okay, he may not have played Bay Hill in the past, but he has played in 4 U.S. Opens. We know this is kind of like a regular PGA Tour U.S. Open kind of feel. Difficult golf course, right? But in his most recent U.S. Open last year, he tied for 14th. So this is a guy that knows how to take on tough challenges, tough courses. 12th in shots gained approach. That's such a magical stat for this week, right? We love what players bring in approach on a course like this, and he's got that there. He's 11th in 200+ yard approach on the PGA Tour, and that is huge because there's so many mid irons. You're going to have long irons on second shots, so these longer par fours, but also longer par threes. So Hardy brings some strength there. He's 15th in greens to regulation so far this year. He's 34th in shots gained tee to green. So there's a lot of good strengths. I think you'll get a great value out of a player like Nick Hardy this week at Bay Hill. All right, lastly, let's finish a solid value. I think a solid value pick this week, Thomas Detry, who plays really well in the wind. We're going to have windy conditions all 4 days, double digits. We're going to see up to 35-mile-an-hour gusts, 40-mile-an-hour gusts on Friday, but he plays well in windy conditions. This is your guy. He was won in Melbourne in a team event in Australia about in 2018. And then also last year at the Scottish, he tied for 10th. Remember how windy that was at Renaissance Club there in Scotland. So really solid player in that regard. And then there's so many important strengths at Bay Hill that Detry brings to the table. You think of driving distance, 24th in that department. A lot of past champions have been very strong in driving distance. Sand saves, right? Remember the shaved runoff areas? He's 17th in that area. So if you get him in the sand, he's one of the best, top 20 on tour at getting up and down. Scrambling, speaking of up and down, he's 15th on the PGA Tour. And this is a course where all week you're going to be scrambling around Bay Hill, and then putts per round, 26th is where he ranks on the PGA Tour so far this season. So he's got short game, he's got driving distance, and he's got approach. There's so many positives for Thomas Detry. I think is a great value pick for you this week. Subscribe if you like the content, and we'll catch up with you again next week.